This is Tea with Botha.
Welcome to another riveting episode of Tea with Botha. We are asking a question that is not ordinarily spoken about today. And what is that question? The question is, what does it mean raising autistic children in our country, which still struggles with issues around accessibility and inclusion? And when it is both personal and political, but we also have to ask the question, when you look at autism through the lens of gender, of class, of race, and also gaps in the support system, what does that mean? And please help me to welcome a guest who talk more about this. We are joined by Kgomotso Moalusi, who will assist us in talking or looking through what does it mean to raise autistic children. Malkhaya, welcome and thank you for making time.
Tata Botha Dumela, thank you. Thank you for inviting me. This is long overdue. I'm excited to be here and to unpack this topic.
Oh, thank you so much. Indeed, it is long overdue, and I'm happy we finally are meeting and talking about this. Tell me, Malkhaya, who is Malkhaya? Can you tell us or our viewers as to where were you born? And where did you go to school? And yeah.
Kgomotso Malkhaya.
Kgomotso, yes.
Actually born in Krugersdorp, if you would believe. I was born in Krugersdorp.
I thought welcome.
My parents were in Klerksdorp, and then you would know doctors and people used to be placed. So then they were in Klerksdorp, and then my dad had a surgery in Bothaville, then went to Odendaal, and we eventually ended up in Odendaal and then living in Velkom. So from about 1983, we've been in Odendaal and Velkom. It's 10 kilometers apart.
Yeah.
So that's where I grew up. I started school that side. I've been in Anglican schools all my life. I was at St. Andrews in Velkom. And then exactly 30 years ago this year, I came to Pretoria to St. Mary's Diocesan School for Girls here in Hatfield. And from there, I moved through to Takkies. Didn't quite complete at Takkies. Went through a bit of a rough patch personally, a part of depression, and then continued on with UNISA. So that's who I am. I'm a middle child. Everything circles around here. I'm in the center. It's a name I like. It's actually it's my mother's aunt's name. So Malkhaya. I got an older brother and a younger sister. So you have slap in the middle, 5 years, 6 years. I'm actually number 3 because my parents lost a child. Hence, Kgomotso. Kgomotso and Kinchanyane, because somebody died before I came. Kinchanyane wild African dog.
And
so how
it's not derogatory.
Not to me.
It means there's that context.
Yes, that's the context.
Yeah. And Malkhaya, tell me, you worked with civil society
So when I dropped out Takkies, I was home. I was depressed.
Yeah.
When you're young and you think your problems are the biggest thing. And my mother actually started me off taking me to branch meetings, Young Women's Christian Association.
YMCA.
YWCA. There was a branch. Vota, like very, very strong, but it was in Velkom. And through working with them, I'd been a brownie and understood the idea of volunteering. So I actually started on this work. And I think that is where I actually eventually met you, because from that, the head office here, YWCA, was Bloemfontein, which was right opposite the CGE, the Youth Commission. Yeah. So I was there, became part of the moral regeneration movement, when it launched, and there were those provincial committees. I was
with Strong Agenda Justice.
Yes, so I was the youth representative for the Free State Province.
And that's how we met, many years ago.
That's how we met, getting in a bus to Durban for, was it the last or whatever, the men's conference. It was very fascinating. being in a bus with all men talking all the things they talk, but it was interesting, like from a gender perspective.
Yeah.
Great, yeah. So yeah, that's where I was, and so with YWCA we grew. I eventually became their national president. Traveled a lot across the continent, to Sweden, to other spaces, representing them, and that's how I then also came into South African Women in Dialogue, etc., etc. And after
That's
many
SAWIT,
years,
yeah?
that's SAWIT.
Yeah.
And after many years of doing that, I started working in government July 2011. It's the only government job I've ever had. I had a short-term contract to come and assist with programs for young women at the Department of Women, Children, and People with Disabilities. And yeah, game me more.
Yeah. Many years, huh?
I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but we shall see. I've learned a lot. Or is it how it's off from NGO or wavota, man. You got a lot of energy, and government is humbling. It's humbling in how the systems work. It's humbling in
It's slow.
understanding.
There's
Very,
bureaucracy.
very slow. But the slowness is not also just always bad. Because there is systems. There is having to show that you are talking to everybody. You know, I get very frustrated. And now we're veering totally off topic a bit.
Yeah.
But I get very
It's important.
frustrated.
Yeah.
No, it's important because for policies and things to change, people need to get involved. And a lot of people live with misconception. We have a good government and with systems. You would laugh. I mean, imagine if we could have a president just doing executive orders in jail without consultation. And one of the reasons why things become stagnant is, remember that the Botha Toma, NGOs were very organized and they were representative of the people. An NGO everywhere, perpetual stander in every place they go. But the information no longer cascades down to the people or the information coming up. And even in this journey, this is what I realized, to say, being in the NGO and then being in government has actually in the end been very helpful when I put together a foundation, and the reason why, because I realized somebody still needs to do the work to bring. What government do? You don't come looking for solutions. You come with a prototype and you hope that they can help regularize and whatever. So a lot of people want to wait for government to do things, but you actually have to start. Government is not and I think maybe that's what I miss about being in the civil society space. That's the biggest difference. That doing things for yourself now as opposed to waiting. So I will take in this instance, we have a white paper on disability. White paper. You know white paper, King. It's a conceptual document. How are we 30 years into a democracy with a conceptual document? What does that mean when things change? Now you know more just physical disability. You're moving on to this neurodiversity umbrella. It's a new type of thing. We can't now be ticking off just ramps and toilets. There's other things to look at. There's lights and if you're still holding things that old, how are you catering for these things, right? But then the NGOs, where are you? Where are you? Because these voices must be brought. You must say, and that's why every year I host the family picnic, because one of the things on this journey, before we actually explain what autism is, one of the things that frustrated me the most when I wanted to be a parent, I wanted to do things with my children. That's how I envisioned parenthood. Now, when you have a child whose needs are different, your life changes. Birthday party doesn't come. Go into the store. I'm going to break it down to you.
Interesting.
Go into the store. Go into church. All those things are very difficult to do because you are dealing with people, and sometimes people who do not understand what is going on. That's when the judgment comes. So that's when the nasty things or the careless comments come. Right? But I still want to go back to that dance of government and NGOs, where it then comes in. Because I think my experience then had me sitting to say, instead of people are against, you're proactive. You must do something. So rather, when we host people in November, we have created a space where, okay, you don't want to visit my kids or you don't want my kids to visit you. How about I create a space where I show you that my children and your children can actually be in the same space. And not just children. Remember, we talk about autistic children, but autistic children become autistic adults, you know? And luckily, when they are children, we are still talking about schools and health and whatever. When they're adults, babang, babang, and you see them all over the space, and you are not responding to them, not understanding that this is autism. So you ask, what is autism? So autism is a neurological condition. It is not a mental illness. It is a neurological. So how the brain works and how the messages move through the system, that is what it is, right? So it's how the brain works. You know, just like we each have our own fingerprint, we each have our own brain. So how does it present that everybody else sees? People with autism then struggle with social interactions and communication. If somebody walks through and they're autistic, you are not just going to see it. But if you've been sitting for a few minutes, you will see in behavior that something is happening. There is a tapping of feet. There is maybe a swinging, or like something is shifting here, or even how they communicate. Many times you see somebody with their fingers in their ears. And it is a regulation, calming yourself down, if I could say that. Why? Because autism presents through the senses. Now, we all know the 5 senses: tasting, smelling, hearing, seeing, touching, right? And, you know, as a communicator, it's always very interesting to realize, we think communication is talking, but communication is all of those things. So as you're drinking your tea, how hot it is, that is a communication of one of your senses to your brain so that you can have the required response. So in autism, there is a breakdown in that sometimes, right? So on top of the 5 senses, there is 3 other senses that come through that other people generally wouldn't be struggling with. So there's something called vestibular. Vestibular it's about your inner ear. It's your head movement. It's balance, right? So because autistics are either hyper or hypo, they experience the senses at either a heightened or a lessened frequency. And then the worst thing, no 2 autistics are the same, right? So there's the vestibular. It will have to do with a sense of space. The table is here, I am here. That is your vestibular thing. Many of us do it automatically without understanding. But when you have a younger child who's undiagnosed, so that is it. It's the sense of so you're trying to find yourself back again. Then there is proprioceptive, which is how your muscles and your joints work. So as I'm talking and I'm doing this, I can feel that this is what my hand is doing. But for many autistics, sometimes there is a disconnect on that is happening. Now, I'm on seven senses. And you must know these things are all happening at the same time at different frequencies. You can imagine how that does. And then, of course, the other one, which the 8th one, I will actually even say 9, but the 8th one will be interoception. So that urge to eat, or that urge, the urge to go and pee, the sleeping or not sleeping, those things are a struggle inside an autistic person, right? And then what I would call the 9th one is social interaction. Understanding these are social cues. Somebody is smiling, somebody's happy, what is happening? Sometimes there is a breakdown with that as well. So I'm raising 2 boys. Present
Thabo le Lesedi.
Lethabo umpile, le Lesedi Kgomotso. Modimo umpile, Lethabo Lesedi la Kgomotso. Those are my boys. Both autistic. Diagnosis 5 years apart. Because it presents differently. And especially with twins, you're like, are they mimicking or not? The most obvious thing that people see is they're not talking. Or they're struggling with talking. And then they are not responsive. But earlier, if you look back and you know more about the condition, you understand, you realize, oh, my child was not mimicking. You know that age where bana ba etsa ba 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 ba. So some of those things are gone. So some of those things are not always there. O na le ngwana, maybe who will be spinning, o tsamaya ka matsetsekwane, maybe they flapping their hands, maybe they rock. O na le ngwana how, like I would be with my boys and we would be great re le bang, e re o kena motho wa boraro. Then like something goes off and it's almost like at that point it's like o na le ngwana a sa rateng batho. But it's not that, it's that the energy in the room changes and everybody presents different things. So for example, a lot of people think when an autistic person does that, it's because it's too loud. Maybe. Sometimes it is too loud. But then sometimes the person is struggling with, we're in a room of people and we are all talking. So we're talking over each other. So I always like to use the example of how come Mamela Pina and you imagine that this person processes every element of the song separately. So hence their reaction will be delayed. Their reaction will not be what you expect, right? And I think I did take some notes because, like I said, there's a lot.
And how did you, I mean, how did it, I mean, emotionally, when you discovered when Amalchayo that my kids are autistic?
It's a journey, right? For a lot of us, I mean, these are my first kids. I've never raised kids before. So you have the books, you have things that you think are going to make things go. And you see these things with the kids. And I don't know, parenting is also such a, I call it a judgy sports. Like everybody judges everything you're doing. With very little help sometimes. Because you go and you say to your doctor, like, you know, like Letabo would go around the bed the whole night. Like harobali. And you don't understand what this is. With other children, it's struggling when you're moving to different textures of food. And this child will not do that. And you will see how that also affects speech. Because remember, as you move to the textures, your tongue moves around differently. Hence, you can get to the part of speaking. Now, if you are having somebody who is only wanting soft substances, it means their mouth is not developing properly, right? There is a breakdown in those things. So, and then there's difference. There's autistic kids who are then picky eaters, etc., and they struggle. I mean, we have a support group, and you will find the mother who says, "Listen, my child only eats this. Rice is kakopanale, chicken is kakopanale. Like they must stay separate. They cannot be eaten together." You know. So, but about autistic is sometimes they are very rigid. And the rigidity for many people, difficult. But you then later learn predictability makes them feel safe. So you need things to stay the same. You know, how another one now ankile di toys di eta line up ile dilo tso tsotlhe mo fatshe. Na le thabo na bula dikhaboti kaofela. So no ka kena mo kitchen go bitse dikhaboti kaofela like all the time and you wouldn't understand what is going on. How mo rekela toy o dlala ka party e one fela not the other part. How does it make you feel? I think I was perhaps maybe still in a state of shock because for now the principal co-creator phoned to say, you know, your child is screaming. Have you ever heard of autism, etc., etc.? And I didn't know that, because okay, my twins are gonna go crash. They are being separated. Maybe that is the issue. But I always remember going to a concert, end of year concert, on the stage because they get into their terrible twos and they have tantrums. But in autism, it's not tantrums that you're having. It is called a meltdown. Because a tantrum is, I'm angry, I want this pen. I give you this pen, the tantrum stops. A meltdown is not that. A meltdown is a lack of control that comes when somebody is overly stimulated. They are, they're like off. And they could be overly stimulated by multiple things. By the lights, by the sound, by a very strong smell, by, it could be a myriad of things. And you're only going to know that when you know the condition and you know the child. So with Letabo, I think because we were already struggling, it was still difficult to get information exactly around what this is and what it means.
Is that part of the diagnosis?
Part of the diagnosis, because many times autism is not diagnosed like immediately, right? It must be a couple of tests checking because you'll tick off first. Is it maybe maybe something else is going on before you finally get to that? Because I think with communications, there's like 14 things that they then check off. But people who are very good at diagnosing or indicating that autism exists are people in the ECD space and teachers, because remember, their job is to teach people to be social. So they are some of the first ones to see socially more like interaction anyway, yeah, whereas like I said, Rona as parents, like, why is he not talking? And that is actually the one that most people identify first. In other countries, in other spaces, it's like with improved research, people are able to do diagnosis earlier, up to even when a child is a year or whatever. But I think we were almost at 2.5, almost 3 years, right? And it's a problem. The later it is, because interventions are necessary.
So the support.
Yes. No, interventions, therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, maybe music therapy, depending on what your child's, you call it sensory diet is. What is it that they react to? I mean, I remember there was a time, and you learn, oh, textures are also a problem. Now, sounds very cute, sounds very funny, but when you're in the moment, why is it that's it. You feel like you're going crazy to be like, what is happening with my kids? I can't take them anywhere. And it would because I really hire sharp. I chaotic. So you're always in a chaotic space yourself. When you walk into a store and a child is crying, you don't know they're autistic, you're like, maybe ke sound ya trolley, maybe ke the escalator, maybe there are so many sensory triggers that the rest of us go through life never really hearing. Like, you would say, is that even real? Electricity is loud, makes that sound. But to an autistic person, it's an incredibly loud sound. Whereas we are just sitting here and things are brighter. So for somebody else, they can hear that itty bitty little sound, or that smell, or that. So you have to observe your child and learn what their issues are, right? So that was Letabo. I was supported. My dad was incredibly helpful. I can't say I accepted. I think I for the longest time I was in a state of denial. And you, like anything else in life, you bargain limitimo, because then we had to say, then we're like, okay, at least more Rashab. And they said it was only like when he went to school.
That's Lesedi now.
That's Lesedi, yeah. Because Lesedi then picked up speech and he can do things. But then as a parent, I had to get to a point, mainstream. Like, I could see my child is struggling, and not struggling with school, but struggling with interacting with other people. And what is it that the child then hears? The child hears, you are slow, you are difficult, and one of the things that is so heartbreaking, remember, autism does not mean there is a lack of cognitive capacity. Autistic people are sometimes some of the very smartest people. It's just how they communicate is different. And unfortunately, we live in a world where if you don't speak, you must be stupid. You must have something wrong with you, So it's very difficult. And you take it on where then also at that point you're a single parent. It's incredibly difficult. And, coming into a community of other mothers was actually incredibly helpful, but also heartbreaking, because you realize how many of us blame ourselves. You're like, was I a late mother? Was I fat? Were they incubated? Did we do a Caesar? Was it natural? Did we do vaccines? There are so many questions, because you have people whose first child is autistic and the others are not. Or you have an autistic child in the middle of the family and the others are not. Right now, the science is a bit all over the place. And for me, the one I really like to hold on the most to is that perhaps environmental factors are also problematic. I mean, we're at this point, we're eating GMO foods. There is the climate thing. There's the LCDs that we love so much, these screens. They're helpful, but they're not, right? Because if you're going to be struggling with social interaction and you're in a world where you are cutting out socially everybody else to be in one space. How are we going to identify a computer addiction, let's say maybe, or that separate from it being a neurodivergent condition? It's going to take a while, So, and I want to tell you something about acceptance. Acceptance, I think, it's a delicate dance. It's a dance between acceptance and grief. Because the child you named with the name that you want, and the child you thought you were going to have, and the child you have is very different, incredibly different. So you're going to go through a place where people you were pregnant with, children who are the same age as your child, are going to go through milestones that are just normal, that your child does not. Whether high school, whether, being able to do certain things. That is just the reality. I mean, just last week, I had a milestone that would be so pathetic in everybody else's eyes. I took my boys home to my mother. And this was the first time Mbuyiselo away from me physically for more than 10 days. It was the first time since 2016. Like, it was the first time in 9 years. I was not around my children. Because when you are having children who struggle with certain things or have certain needs, you are the person, you turn into a hovering mother. You are the person who wants that. Nobody comes. People are like, no, I'll check it out. What? So what happens? It means that I realize I'm one of the most tired people you've ever met. You would have thought, I'm going to go. I slept last week. I slept like I have never slept, and realized how very tired I am. Because I fail. It's actually almost like a lifelong thing. It is a very big part of autism that ba struggle le go robala. So from 11, you can go up from 11 till about 3 or 4 in the morning. And no, you can't, because you can't ignore him. It's either he's humming, or he's tapping, or he's moving around, or he could hurt himself. So you are up with this child. And if your child is doing this 2 or 3, even 4 times a week, because then there are days where maybe it's a full moon, you're up. But guess what? And I must be functional. I have another child to talk about. Who are you going to tell who is going to understand that? Do you go to a workplace and say, I'm taking family responsibility, and somebody says, I need a doctor's note? I can't take my child to the doctor for something that is part of his condition. But I'm saying to you, I'm tired. And I am. I'm physically tired. And you can imagine what that does to the quality of your life. Health-wise, emotionally. You're drained. Nannies, not shame. You go. And then it's not that, it's difficult. I spoke to you about interoception. Who do you think is going to sit at Bereka with a 12, 15, 20-year-old? Who do you think stays around for that? Who do you think stays around to stay up busigolongwana? And motho a teng ka re ha kgone ho bolela nako nngwe, o tla go shapa or push on you. Who do you think, except for a mother or a teacher? And teachers and doctors, I tend to say, yeah, they're doing it, but they clock off. We don't clock off. We are clocked in, and you have to be clocked in all the time. I am now at a point where, let's say, they are taller than me, and even bigger, because a lot of the medication is around anxiety. So there's weight gain. There's all sorts of those things. Who else is going to do that with you? Because I promise you, not even family. Sometimes in relationships, even that, somebody becomes a primary caregiver. And as a primary caregiver, it's heavy. Né? But having said that to you, I always, when I talk to people, it's how I develop, because then you see somebody being so shocked and wanted to cry. You're like, no. I also enjoy my mommy journey. Like, I wanted to be a parent. I am happy to be a parent of these children because there are benefits to this. One of the things I've enjoyed on this journey is having to be more present in the moment. How concentration span TV, like he moves on to the next thing. So you're always seeing that. So how about one asa change? And it could be a lot of things. Like Lutaba doesn't speak. So maybe waja, maybe waitum. Maybe mutai chapa kapa shapa mutomung kapa itang. And I have to understand what is going on. I mean, the other day unanale an ulcer in his mouth. It took so long to understand. Behind his teeth, in his mouth. I'm talking about 12, 13-year-old. So men are fully grown. Ne? It's not like one, not that I so I'm on, he's eating less, his energy is a bit off. You're trying to figure, so it's deductions. Eventually I took a nap and he came to lie down next to me. And then he took my hand and put it in his mouth. But let the like, what am I going to do here? And it's only then. So it's moments like that where we took a day and a half to understand. And you can imagine the level of pain. And when they are younger, our children also have high threshold of pain. I mean, like up here. And I get robek, I'm not saying cracked. Like lesapo le robekil. Did not cry. Continued on its life. When we went to the hospital, it was broken off. Yeah, they had to put in some metal to put it back together again. But you wouldn't have known. Because at this point, we're now on third floor. I always say, it's crack for nuts, huh? How work I fear for call work on autism. Balcony. I remember I was called by a mother, one of the ladies in my support group. Her child was sitting in the middle of the street. On a busy road. He sat down. Now, how do you explain that to people without looking like a crazy person? For some dinner thing at a game park. A sense that this is dangerous. So that is why I say to you, you cannot say because you never know. You never know. And why is it a sensory thing? Implant. We had a young lady implant contraceptive.
Okay.
Because especially with girls, I mean, our kids are going to be prone to molestation, even the boys. But because it was a foreign body, it was uncomfortable. She literally dug it out of her body. So that's when we talk about because that sensation, which we all know, why is it for Anna, it is so irritating. It is so overwhelming. They have to respond to it. And if it means having a different type of pain, so be it. So a lot of our children, how Romisa dentist, they must be put under anesthetic to do a dental checkup. I'm at this point now, I'm raising boys. Because of earlier things and conditions, whatever, we didn't necessarily do circumcisions earlier. If I have to do it now, we are going to have to put him under anesthetic. There's no way it was Mutole even I'm sure he was 5 or 4. Like you will do nothing because that strength, because remember they are coming from a point of fear. Like, what are you doing to me? Like, what is this anxiety? And one of the things I like about medical people, I don't know. So they're like, no, I left him with him overnight. Why how can I go sister? Like, no, we can't do this. You can't put in the injection. Because I must be there with you. And luckily for me, I had a surgeon because I was able to tell him up front that this is what's happening. He was like, okay, come. When we go put him down, come. Anesthesia, like be there so you can do the calming. So some of the answers are not straightforward. It's a balance. It's a very delicate balance. Sometimes a desperate and frustrating balance. But when you win, I shame. When you win, because we have won. And it's funny because you are winning at things that people see as very pathetic. They do it all the time. My child was doing this at 2 or 3 and whatever. One of the things that autism that I didn't talk about, this is an incurable thing. It cannot be cured. It is a lifelong condition, right? It's not going anywhere. So the therapies, the medications, they are there to maintain, right? Maybe lessen anxiety. Therapy, let's teach. Occupational therapists, I always say to parents, if you're in a school or a space, daily activities for daily living. And we thought they were dumb. I mean, woodwork, kitchen. Now you're like, what is this? Until you realize this is what this person needs. Because an autistic individual, and I want to move away from children. I'm talking about and unless you have pictures that say, we're going to put on the shower, and then you're like, I mean, I had that indication with the Sedi, because the Sedi Abua, everybody thinks, he gets it together. Let's have habu at all. Kero ena kena mo showering, o tle so tlhatso underwear ha. Motolo again ka mo showering with his underwear and came out with his. Why it took me a moment where I was like, why do I keep forgetting this? Because also autism may affect, especially let's take Baba Bulela, that people like to call highly functional or more genius. You can have an autistic child, akabalang memorize buka e. But that child still struggles to brush their teeth or to eat or to sleep. So the world will be like, oh my Lord, but it's genius. But as parents, we know that it is a problem. If you're raising a girl who cannot differentiate between somebody being nice to them and somebody abuse, they cannot read that. Because and what happens, especially in communities, because we know about looking through the lens of classism. Lucky are us who are having a conversation and we're having schools. But go Eldorado Park, go vacationing. A lot of our children are the ones that are used by gangs. Because what I think I understand how to that executive function. So, but about autism, you can't read through some of the sarcasm. So you have to be direct and concrete with what you're saying. So that puts somebody at a place where they can be manipulated and they can be used because they do not understand. We have a lady, white lady, whose son has just gone, whose son has just gone through,
Was it hot?
I had kicks. No, it was strong.
Okay.
Anyway, I'm like, sorry.
Blame her, Tile. Blame her.
Okay.
This is
Anyway.
I'm sorry for the experience.
When I had just struggled with the justice system. Because you find many, let's take those autistics who perhaps then go through school, through tertiary. Many end up then also not getting jobs. Because remember, the workplace is a social space. So ke bone e leng gore khalere mosebetsing wena o snacks o abantsa sa apara hantle kapo abantsa batla dintho di rate batho. So what do? That's a person you don't keep. Although on paper they are the best. So then you can't necessarily get jobs. And it's good now, and I'm going to talk about systems of schools. They are teaching them skills because of the social pressures. It's better to engage with people one-on-one or in smaller groups. But life does not always give you the luxury of getting to choose that, right? So he went through a thing. And so autistic people tend to have what we call special interests.
Special interest.
So look at I badile a book about mics. About mics. And every time I think conversationing, they'll always find a way to bring mics. Like a mic, the history of mics, how the mics are made, like almost genius level because the information keeps flowing. Mushimano got into, because as they grow older, I get lebone by stress medication. There's an introduction of cannabis here, what, and I think, in all honesty, he understood that, okay, when I was on medication made me feel like this, but this marijuana is better, therefore I think it can be helpful in this way. Ne? And of course, what's a researcher high? What's a testing? Mara ha le phodisa le kena mo ntlong eo, o bona a mastermind, o bona drug cartel, and that is how he was taken down. Enkareng he had a drug cartel, right? Ka nako eo, our kids also la bua mothateng, maybe how shebe mahlong and all monotone. So how you dimo ha class. What does that say if you are sitting in front of a judge? Ngaru cheek, ngara batla go bolela. So you know what's happening with that person. That person is being locked up. That person is, because the system does not know that such a person exists. And kale batho ba le teng, like people have this thing, autism is this new, it's not a new thing. Kale re na le batho, o kra mang ko lekeshile maybe a lelekisa dikoyo, ai o ena ka mokgwa a ratang koloi e be le mmitse koloi. It is that, it is a special interest, and this is what, and I feel, and maybe that's why I like to believe autistics tend to also be into mathematics, and because it's patterns, and they find comfort in patterns and orderly things. Perhaps, I don't know, I could be wrong. I'm just thinking about that. So in that way, and it's very heartbreaking as a parent, because for most parents, you have to be very alert with your child until their toddler years, or maybe 5 years. Having to be on alert with your child their whole life is heavy. It's heavy on the spirits, it's heavy on the heart, it's heavy on your finances. But that is the reality. Because those parents who tell you, no, maybe my child was able to grow, maybe get married. Autism in Alain, on top of being incurable and lifelong, there are these sudden moments of regression. So you've been well, and then something happens. A trigger, maybe like that trigger can shut down. You know? When now we talk about a meltdown, which is what people think is a tantrum, where moto is sensory overloaded, and then they break out either in repetitive behavior like stimming, maybe singing, and that we all do it. We all do it. Whether you're sitting in a meeting and you're drawing little things. But Kabone, it's more overt, because Havana a sense of self-awareness, or that this is becoming too much, right? So that's what stimming is. And stimming happens when somebody is happy. It happens when somebody is frustrated. So and you think they're angry. It could be anything. You could be joyful. You could be unhappy. I still need to figure out what is going on there. As they get older, and especially for those, we call them low support needs, not high functioning, because of the understanding that an autistic person will always need some level of support. Some need more. So the type was more high support, whereas the city is lower support. But there's none with no support, right? It's always required, because you can have somebody with their doctorate, and so you have to have a parent or somebody there to say, did you eat today? Did you drink water? Because their mind can go off somewhere else, right? And there's that concentration of doing what it is that you're doing. So when they're older, and especially those who are engaging with the broader world, a thing called autism shutdown. This is when you literally shut down. Like I had this lady, and the daughter had actually become an advocate mistress. And when she has her shutdown, she's like, my child does not drive anymore. Now can't feed themselves. And you're talking about a 30, 40. So you must go back to help them, because they are so exhausted. Because what must happen with our children is, in the world, they must mask. So I'm going to talk about masking, and I'm going to talk about girls. So girls tend to be diagnosed later, because girls are better at masking. So they're better at mimicking and
what
assimilating.
What does that mean, masking mean?
It's assimilating. It's literally putting on a mask to be like, I am normal. I am with you. So it takes a while for people to realize what I meant. And like, this is autism, because Moto is just repeating what you are doing. It's about them. And for Enamuto, it has what we call a Coke bottle effect, where they get so tired that they shut down. They get so tired of mutua practice. Practice. I'm gonna get in the door. I'm gonna greet this one. Because when you are socially awkward or you struggle with social situations, you must always plan to how it's gonna be. Right? So one of my favorite facts about autism, an older American autistic was saying, it's so funny how everybody thinks we are the weird ones, but we think you guys are the weird one. Because why? We are called neurotypical, which means we are normal, usual, whereas neurodiverse means, a bit divergent. And they were asking people to be like, neurotypical people Latina, like, you don't say what you mean. Like, why do you come in and say, what in the hell? What are you talking about? Say what it is. Like, they struggle with our language because they were like, if we are autistic and we ask questions, we are expecting an answer. Now I'm confused to be like, are you asking a question? Did you really want an answer? And you can imagine, Ntate Botha, when you're used to other people who understand when you talk. If you're in a workplace and whatever, or something about Arababek, Kadimwano is honestly just saying, what is happening? What is angry? Because they are responding to what you're saying in its concretized version, not in the nuanced way that we speak. English is so sarcastic, nuance, like, they're like, just get to the point. Say what you want to say so that I can understand what to do. Because that's what they do, So,
any cultural myths or any, any, I mean, what I'm saying, myths that you think they can be breaking, we can break them. What are those?
Cultural myths. And I think one of the mistakes we do when we talk about cultural myths is we think that it's just a Black or an African thing.
It's over a year since we started the channel Tea with Botha. It has been an amazing journey. It contributed to amazing. There are 3 important things that you can do. One of them, important one, the first one is subscribe. If you subscribe, you're actually sending a message to YouTube that what you are doing is important, is valuable. The second that you should do is, whilst you are watching this video, press the like. Very important. Thirdly, is also important, is this video, as you like it, as you subscribe, you also share with friends, family, and colleagues. That's when you talk about class, race, gender.
Everybody has culture, Black or white, Indian. Everybody has culture, because culture is a practice of behavior, right? So we'll take from the mainstream all the way down. You get the all autistics are geniuses, but to be like, no matter, you're like, yeah, but there are still struggles. And I always say to people, of course, what did you expect? I knew, but not in the way that you would think, right? There's the genius myth. In society and depending where you are, it would be maybe kibadimo, maybe kiboloyi. And it's been interesting having the conversation and engaging with fathers as well. Because again, we also live in a very big misconception, just like we do sometimes in the GBV space, that African men or African fathers just don't care. That's not true. That's not true. I mean, apart from people that write whatever, for the rest of us who live in society, I know good Black men. I have been raised by them. I have them as my friends. Yes, but it cannot be that it is said that they're wrong. I go to a school when we have support days and we have things, and Black fathers come and they understand their kids.
Interesting.
They do come. They are interesting.
They're involved.
It's just that I think women, by our very nature, we are. Men don't function like that. So you need to create different types of spaces. And I'm very happy and I'm very proud that they're actually starting to do that. Fathers of children with diversity, and it's good. And for me, you will laugh. I am happy when Black parents also can do it. For example, I'm in a support group, and we are Black mothers. We are Black mothers across the diaspora. Again, another misconception. It must be in South Africa. It must be so bad. Oh, darling, we got mothers in the UK. You know, whole bad. We live in a world that others people. When you are going through an experience that does not mirror the experience of the majority, you will be left out. And as you very well know with disability, worse, an invisible disability, it's almost like hardly exist. You look at our system. Now we're doing ECD, we're doing school. You're doing school, you've introduced DCAPS. DCAPS is very good, it makes sense. Because autistic people need something concrete. That's education system where you're concentrating, number one, on skills, but also delivering the education visually, mostly visually, like you're balancing out the visual and the written thing because they need to see things, right? That is very good. But I still want to know why, if we're doing DCAPS, we then ended off at grade 5 or grade 7. So it means even if my child had a capacity to go to grade 12, they don't even, from the get, we have kicked them out of the system, right? And then how does this play out? When my child turns 18, or a child in any Elson turns 18, bafedise school. Where does higher education and all these other people come in? They'll say, no, Ana Metriki, they're not for us. They don't have matric, so we have nothing for them. But where do we continue those vocational skills? Where do they go?
So he can't be, or they can't be accepted, go like your TVET.
No, because you must have got to a certain grade to get into that space. And how many of them are receptive or are doing courses in that way? If you are in a CETA or something and you are doing cooking, and you know, sir, things are possible. My kids are in a government school, and being on the school SGB taught me a lot of things. Like it opened up my eyes, little Miss Private Girl, who I thought I knew a lot. Listen, there is work being done and there is good work being done. It's just not scaled up enough and we don't talk about it enough. And I have loved specifically in Tshwane how they separate and they've identified schools that will be autism schools. Because an autistic child and a Down syndrome child have got different needs. A child with cerebral palsy, they have different needs, right? And on top of it, in this world, you can have them concurrent. So you can be ADHD and autistic, Down syndrome and autistic. Where do you go? Because our system is either or. And it's very funny because the spaces themselves, I remember we had a strat plan at the SGB and we were looking at policies. And I asked them to say, man, I haven't seen a disability toilet, right? Or why aren't we doing ramps? And I remember one of the management people were like, no, we don't deal with that. We deal with autism. I'm like, so what happens when an autistic child in a wheelchair needs to go to school? So you don't think, and I always laugh in South Africa, how everybody wants their own thing. So the intersectionality, we talk about it, but we don't practice it, right? So when a president says to you, I'm doing women, youth and persons with disability, people are like, yo, President, why does he put this together? And I sat there and I thought, what? Who are you? Because what, do you think all women are going to be CEOs? What, the majority of women are on the ground. Anybody who gets disabled, by the way, because disability comes in different ways. You can go through your whole life and get disabled. I don't know about you. Caretakers I see are female. So if you can be in the gender space and not see how disability is important for women or caregiving around that, what are you talking about? We are how many years into talking about care economy that care work that is non-paid. Yet a proper example of care work, you are saying, no, that's not our business. Let's leave it. You're like, what? How does that make sense? So some things move apart because we see ourselves separately. You look at, I was asking somewhere, I remember there was a time Home Affairs was doing 10,000 jobs and it was like entry-level jobs because they needed shredders and whatever. And you look at the requirements and they're like, we want grade 10 or matric. And I'm thinking, but if you go to special schools, there are young people you could come to do this, because all you're looking for is for one person to sit in one place every day and shred. Now, for unemployed graduate, that is degrading work. But for my child who needs to do the same thing every day, that is okay work. I mean, my Lesedi could run HR, or Lesedi can be a police, because Lesedi is rigid. He is about good choices, and he doesn't understand why people don't do good choices. Like, and and you say, so society, you don't see that these what you call vulnerabilities can also be opportunities if you just looked at it through a different lens. I think we look, and that's why we call it vulnerable groups. I hate that word. That's why we call it vulnerable groups. You do. You call women and children like they're vulnerable. Why are they vulnerable groups? Why are youth vulnerable groups? They are the majority of live people in our continent. We call them vulnerable. Women are vulnerable. They are the majority of people in our society. What makes them vulnerable? Because you don't want to transform. So for me, I look, yes, I'm in the department and maybe we don't all see it the same, but I like to look at it and say, I think it is right that you have a department like this, but if your outlook could be different, if you can be looking at the potential of young people and the potential of people with disabilities and work towards that potential, we can make better things instead of quadruple oppression. Listen, it's good, it's true. But let's talk about the opportunity how you speak about things. So I'm now at this point where my kids are going to be at some point out of the special education system. What am I going to do with them? Because hello world, they don't drop off the face of the earth. They don't just die. So where do they go? Where do they go? It is going to be trauma for my child who needs predictability and is going to school and is counting, like we said, every day. Today, 27, it's July. It's so-and-so's birthday. This happened in the world. We are going to school. So many. Can you imagine when school stops for that child? Right? And then I want to take my child home. And then maybe I live in a complex or in a flat. And then my child does inappropriate things, for example. My child sees Hadile, falls in love, and now husbanding, my child just likes this person. That's it. And it's not even sexual. It's just, I like her. She connects with me. That is fine. In a world, what is that? Is that not a stalker? Is that not? So then, because I must still go work. I must still feed my child, right? Then what do you say?
And hello, you're single.
Yeah. Well, single or not, because there are many people who are not single yet, may just as well be doing the job alone. What is single? Is single not being married? Not living with somebody else in the house? There are many people who live with people and still carry the load. It doesn't really matter. So I lock my child so that I can work. Or maybe I don't go with my child to something because I know of how you respond. Letting happen. Ooh, basadi ba disabled. You don't know how to act. You don't know how to be human beings. You see our kids and you see animals. So nakongwe, I am going to spare my child the indignity of being around you. I'm going to do that. So I'm going to, yes, I have to do things. I have to go to a restaurant, I have to go to a shop, but I'm going to adjust. I'm not going to go come and I'm not going to do this. Because we need to manage. We know what the issue is. And I'm at a point where I always say that to people. And the people in my world, autism is not a problem for us. The problem is when the rest of you enter the equation. Because later, with your thoughts, with your beliefs, and when we are trying to make something work. And we are working. Like every day we wake up and we want to win at something. And most days we do. Throw of course, and it's okay. I can go and acceptance is different. It's a grief, and the grief is painful because most grief, somebody is put into the ground, somebody is no longer here. It is very hard, even as a mother, for me to say I am grieving my child when I am living and loving my child at the same time. But those things can be true because maybe I had dreams for my child to go to a certain high school. Maybe I had dreams for Listen, maybe I want to go on a cruise. Maybe I want to go on a cruise. Maybe I want to go on a holiday. But for me, it doesn't work like that because I need to plan. My kids went home, but I had to make sure I had a lady at Banabaka who I could train, because there is no way I can expect my 76-year-old mother to be chasing. No, well, not even chasing after, but to be understanding all the things that, and that's what you live with. You live with compromises. You live with compromises to say, okay, this is what I need to do. But when you see us, whether young, whether old, we put ourselves together to be here. And then I walk into a restaurant, and then where now you are with your person, and maybe ngwanaka uthula something up, unka something tafuling out, and you go crazy. I can't Roma. Lena, it's not like they're out of it. So I have to learn to do different strategies. So I learned to order food on my way to the restaurant. So when we get there, the food is ready. Because I am very intent on sitting at the restaurant. Because what have I done? I have taught my child, we are going to a restaurant. This is the restaurant, this is the food. We sit, why? Because I want, when I go with them to a restaurant, they understand that this is what we do. So we always have to teach from what, and it's fine. It's fine. It's power for the cause. It's part of the journey. But it is difficult when people don't understand Hore. Things sometimes fall apart. They do. And in that moment, you wish that people could rather show some level of kindness. If you see somebody apepile a 9-year-old, 10-year-old, trolling, yo, ntate security, leave me. Leave me. Because if keke na mo shopping ya gago and wanaka abatuba something, you then want to fight me. Yet I came in with a plan. I can't lock this child away. I don't want to. My child needs to live outside of my existence. So one of the things and Nikeling very excited about is the communities we've been able to build. Listen, they're not perfect. I always say to parents and families, bona mo haona the luxury ya o ikutlwela botlhoko. Mdimon low fet bona. Everybody is made in the image of God, including our autistics. All of us, right? It's a challenge. God or something to ease your life. Like, because you're like, God, you can give me the assignment. Just fund my assignment so that I can do it. But
That's God now.
that's God. God is our podcast.
Does not make resources available.
Bon. Cash. I gave at least another like bears gets a plan. Because I get a plan. Like, I understand my kids. I understand what we need to do. Because remember, as we are dealing with this, we deal with other real things. We have car accidents. You get robbed. I had robbers in my house. They held us hostage. My child because that is the reality. You walk into a house and you see somebody's TV cracked because but a lot of the difficult or challenging behaviors, remember, it's not, and I was explaining this to my mother because she was like, yo, maybe Letabo doesn't just randomly mess things up. There is a trigger, right? So if nkanka khone anong tablet ya Letabo is scratched and cracked, Letabo is pristine because he does what he wants. Afterwards, he puts it away. He won't just come alo to out randomly, you know. But then as a parent, I have a responsibility. Okay, there's the bathroom. You know, take him there a couple of times, show him, and then settle. Right? Please, I went to I want to cramped up. We can't do this. I'm not coming with him, right? But if we're gonna have lunch, why not? You know, in fact, now Letabo will be the first one. All let us speaker. But mutating, my non-speaking child is the most argumentative person in my life. My non-speaking child is the loudest person in my life. Because there is still personality, right? So on top of autism, we are still raising We are entering puberty. We said, "Oh, now the book, emotions. Hey, then you didn't do this." Like, they are still children, and they are still going to get there. They are going to like people. They are going to have erections and have their period. All of those things are still going to happen. But you must know, for us, those things happen on top of something else that is already difficult to work with.
Is that the reason why the foundation or you co-founded?
The foundation for me was, I'm a social person. When I was young, I thought my parents were just terrible. They took us everywhere. But the minute I was having children, I was going to take my children everywhere. Because I like my children. And my kids in my 30s, it was fine. I can still balance that thing out. But it is very painful. Go ba ko kerekeng, go ba ko swimming school, go ba ko shopong, and have people gawking at you. But I've also taught myself that people don't go, people don't know. And why I started the foundation, for me, I was like, you know what? I'm going to be proactive. So when I move into a place, I go around to my neighbors to tell them, hi, I've got autistic kids. This is what happens. And most people in Tatibot, most people in this country in particular, most people are incredibly understanding if you can have a conversation with them. Whether taxi drivers, whether traditional healers, if you go to them and you have a conversation, you tell them, people are very understanding. But sometimes, I guess because the Rejeri, we then say nothing, right? But there are people who are just nasty. And they're not nasty because of the disability. They're nasty because they're poopy people. Like we say, they're poopy people. That's how they are, So you have to be, so for me, the foundation was created for that, to say, here is a manual for restaurants. Hi, restaurant, you're a family restaurant. Families are different. There's blind people, there's deaf people, there's whatever. Please understand. Aki kenani ngwanaka ke kopa re ska dula pela aircon, re ska dula pela kitchen, re ska dula pela ntwele, pela sound system. Just put us somewhere where maybe there's less sound, whatever. Maybe don't give us metal cutlery. Yeah, I'll bring my own wooden cutlery. Because it's possible to do things and tweak. As you well know, I have found, well, and with this particular disability, I won't speak for all disabilities because also that's not my thing. Sometimes reasonable accommodation of somebody is not a big costly thing. Sometimes it's just changing something hanyani. In most instances, yes, there are things where it's equipment, whatever, but sometimes it's, you have this thing in Canada and some of the Norwegian countries where they're in a mall maybe twice a week, a neuro 2 hours. And that just means the sound is down a bit, the lights are dimmed a bit. It's understanding that other people also walk in the space. I have a friend who's based in Venezuela. She's based there in America. And she had to go with her son. And there's no English school, so it's Spanish schools. And she was saying, in as much as these people were saying about autism, I must tell you, I have such an appreciation for this country. Whether it's museum, whether it's understanding people are different in society. And so things are made for them. Like, whether the museums, like things are done to make sure that they too get a quality experience of life. Because for me, that is the biggest thing I want from the foundation. Because I don't understand how, okay, now we'll have an Elson school. Now, soccer, I get it, they have disabilities. Then let's adapt the sports. That's what we do. That's how you came into Paralympics. Let's take basketball and see how we can adapt. There is nothing that we cannot tweak to make it workable for somebody. There's nothing we cannot tweak. All we need is a willing heart to say, okay, let's create this. Like at my kids' school, one of the things I like now, they're introducing horses because our children really like animals. So they do that. You talk to the parents. Hi, can you pay this extra? And the horses come and the children get to do. Because how many parents have the money to go to a horse place and pay for that therapy? It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. So you find that in Elson School, and I want to talk about systems. There are many spaces where the system fails, where the South African system fails.
And where the gaps as well.
Where there are gaps. But I always say, and I say this again, not only being a parent, but also being a parent who is incredibly active in my HGB. Like the HGB for me, Joe, I feel like I've had a whole new education. And I'm grateful for it because it gave me peace with certain things, right? Whereas I didn't want my children to do woodwork and what. Now I see the benefit of that. The benefit of this predictable thing being done over and over. I see that. Another thing I see is government. This South African government gives a lot of money to special schools. A lot of money to the board. A lot of money.
Interesting. Yeah.
But SASA, Schools Act, was changed and how did that parents become majority decision makers in schools, in governance. But no, parents, you want to march to the union buildings to deal with the president. But where your child is for 8 hours, you can't come. You know how many decisions at a school level happen? Whether learner behavior, whether uniform, whether in our case, what do we add to the curriculum that could be helpful to our children? We need 15%, 15% of parents to be in attendance to make big decisions. You know how many times we correct? Generally.
How many?
Hardly ever. Hardly ever.
Because parents are not coming?
Yeah, something like in spaces like that. Although in parents' defense, I will tell you, SGB is a full-time job. It's like a full-on spouse. Like if you are in one that works and you engage. Because what then happens is sometimes the parents who will be there are the parents that are available. And by available, but if you're a parent and your child is in the space and you have a skill, you have a duty to do something. And maybe some of the things you plant in Tatabota will not be beneficial for your child now, but they will be beneficial, you know? And I wish we could do a lot of that, you know? A special school is also an NPO. There's no reason why we cannot fundraise and do some of the things that are required, right? Government, yes, frustrates in the fact that some of the policy changes are not done fast enough. But where things are done, for me, I always say to people, out of all departments, I love DBE because DBE is the only one that at least recognizes that there is still such a thing as autism and we need to do something. Is what they are doing 100%? No.
That's
but they're doing
Department
something.
of Basic Education.
Yes, but they're doing something. But I also want, and shame, some are improving. Home Affairs is now doing this thing where they can come to the school to help do the IDs. Beneficial, great stuff. People don't know this information. Higher education is still the people who have me pissed off. And I mean, this is a podcast, I'll say, they piss me off because I need a plan from you. What are you going to do? I'm a taxpayer. My money goes to NSFAS, whatever, but you are telling me when my child finishes here, there is nothing for them in this government again? After 21.
So you're saying...
are you saying the only thing you are going to give me if you can create spaces and opportunities for my child to do something? Remember, not understanding my child's condition, I am not going to have an issue with my child being a shelf packer, for example, or a tiller, because what is important, and you will learn this, is that your child gets to go out and feels like a member of society. That is what you want. That is what you want. You know, sports, arts, and culture, I mean, many times you are dealing with the sports that has already started at a parent level. But come on, let's go. Let's engage with universities. Let's teach things around adapted sports. And those are some of the things I do as the foundation. I love going on campus radio stations so that when you speak to students, you say to them, autism or disability or transformation or diversity, whatever. It's not just for the doctors, the nurses, and the teachers. Now we're accountant. There's a lot of money for you here. Because now that it's tax season, we are applying for refunds, whatever, and it is a very technical tax space, but it is an opportunity. Social worker, you are in society. How do you then, because remember, social workers are engineers themselves. They are social engineers. You're supposed to come up with solutions for life. And I love it. Architects, let me teach you that when somebody is neurodivergent, you learn that spaces have got acoustics and how the sound carries in the space helps. So I had a time in COVID where, because me and my kids, we've moved a lot, because you must downscale your life. Medical aid doesn't pay for everything, etc. So we've downscaled a lot. And we lived in a first floor, whatever. And I was like, listen, no matter how much rent I need to pay. Because remember, the most expensive unit is the bottom unit, is the most expensive. But it is the only one that we really can use. So I am paying extra for my child's medication, therapy, whatever. And it's now even for basic living, because nobody, and that's what I'm saying, if I'm talking to estate agents, do you know that this is a need? Huh? If you are human settlements, do you know that that is a need? It is not just the ramp. These other things. What other substances can we use in spaces so that if I have a child, I have a neighbor. My neighbor gets irritated. My child makes noise at night. Apparently disturbs his intimacy. So when engineer, whatever, can't you come up with some brick that is like a sound barrier type of thing? So that even if my child makes a noise in my house, it doesn't. So the opportunities are vast. If people could just know. And for
Level of
me, it
consciousness.
excites me when you talk, especially with younger people, and you see that light go off to be like, oh my Lord, this is something. And you say to them, it's not just something, it can be a whole career path. A very lucrative thing, because you know one of the saddest things about the part of parenting and trying to get your child the best opportunity. O tla patela. You ntate bota ra patela. Ra patela. Ngwana ga kena mo transportong go tlhoka assistant mo transportong. Ha ya go swimming ba re ena ha tlo swimmer ha swim same time le bana ba bang. So you are paying for a class. At every spot you are doing that. Ntate bota ke nonne. I ke reka mosese wa ka extra large or 2XL and you want to charge me extra for the material. Okay. That is me. But why am I paying penalties for children that were born to me? This is who they are. It's not going to change. Or understand? It's not going to change. But I must pay extra. You want to be whatever, be and market independent. And listen, I'm glad they are there. But I've also found them problematic. Apart from the cost, which can be anything from 3,000 to 30,000, 35,000 a month. Who has that? And as a parent, you now have to make that decision. I'm raising twin boys. Then there's a school. Here we are, what school? Black Mag School. We specialize in autism. 18,000 a month. As a parent, I get a good on 20% on. I'm going to take my child there. But then there's that other part that drops. But this child, I'm going to raise them my whole life. How much money can I put in here when there's still things to be done there? Do you know how painful it is when to speak to another parent who has been paying through their neck, and now they're getting to the end of their child's journey in the school, but while I have magically come up with another program for adults, you can now just pay 8,000 rand. And I was saying to my friend, but they could have taught your child that while they were there. They could have. That's why I say, if at school they are not teaching your kids the skills in English, then they are not worth the dime they're on. Because yes, we will say we want our kids to get matric and to get to university. Neurotypical people with qualifications do not have jobs. Why are you adding your child into this list? Let's find other things for them to do. Let's find other ways for them to also be responsible members of society who can produce and give something to the economy. You know, they're not empty husks, they're people, they're potential. And I'm of the belief, and I've joined the train of parents and neurodivergent people who are saying, this is where the world is going. You look at people with some of the biggest game-changing ideas. They are on the spectrum, you know, and we didn't talk about that autism, and I said it to you earlier, but didn't mention it as a spectrum. It is diverse. It is diverse. So you will find somebody maybe who struggles with executive functioning. Executive functioning is self-awareness, being able to start and finish a task. So you may find this person strong here, but weak there. Maybe they're weak on communicating, so because all of our kids are different, none of them present. Apart from the speaking, autism presents in them very differently. Very differently.
So it's
Letabo
not, there's
is
nothing
very-
like one size
There's no one
fits all.
size fits all.
Okay.
That is why any space that promises you that they have a one size, not talking talk. It's not possible. It's not one size fits all, but you gotta do a combination of things. And I love it. Again, I'll go back to schools. I am loving how schools are innovating. You know, one of the things I was very happy at my kids' school. You know, normally skills that teach you later on, but now they've moved. And again, as SGB and management in conversation, you move skills to earlier. So instead of sticking to the old and trusted thing where and all they do is sit in that space, they're introducing new things, like doing subjects. So in a class, and in government as well, in a class, in an autism class, learners cannot be more than 8 or 10, because one autism learner is 6 learners, more or less, energy-wise, right? And you can have a maths lesson where this child is at this level and that child is at this level and this child. And that's why I'm saying, they are amazing things. That DCAP's curriculum is incredible. It's amazing, the potential of it, if we could see that. But I think we're just stuck on the negative. So I think even with the foundation, that's my thing. I want to create spaces where fathers get to talk, where mothers get to talk, where all of a sudden, when as in Tatamaholo, you get to be around other children. And parents are very funny because we're all competitive. You're like, we're ashamed. No. Our flavor of autism is sharp because, better. But it also gives you that sense of community. I'm incredibly proud. This year, the 15th of November is our 3rd picnic. Our 3rd annual picnic.
Where do you normally hold
At
it?
Groenkloof, we have a mini MOU with Swane at Groenkloof. And why? Because
on the
nature
15th of-
works on the 15th of November.
November, every year.
Every year, we start to December.
And what happens? What do you do?
What I do is there's hiking. Sometimes there's horses. This year, I'm hoping there'll be bicycles.
You go with the kids who are
We
autistic?
invite parents. No, we invite everybody. And I love that you asked that way, because every time I say to people, we're having this family picnic, why is it? I'm like, no, but I want you too, because I'm trying to create an inclusive space, a space where you and your child can also be around me and my kids, right? And see that it's actually possible. You know, and one of the things I have liked in Tatebot, 2 years in a row, the past 2 ones.
The 15th of November.
Black parents. Because again, I love dispelling the myth. I tell you guys all the time, I want to disrupt, like to say, stop it. There are things we can do. There are things we can do as Black parents, you know. We know what it is like, how nalongwana elongor o tshwantse wa mo tsamaela ka sekhaftini ko mo keteng ka poska lena ko mo keteng, and have families angry with you. So why don't we create spaces where people can see those things for ourselves?
And you're
Why
talking about...
no offense, Vantonderwa batho, ke tlo mo explain ntho a sa e understanding. Why? Come on, let's do this. And like I said, that is the opportunity to say, can more of you come in? You know, one of the things that was such a big milestone when our kids could not
I'm committing myself.
No, you're committing yourself.
15th
November, I would love to see you there.
Yeah, I hope Hetila will come. Namsha will come.
I want you to bring as many people
Andile
as possible. It's our fundraising.
Amu will come.
Apart
with the
from
boyfriend, the town.
Bona listen, the potential to get a packet holo. Legas bonaning fair. Bona, we also sell merchandise. Again, a lot about my foundation, and that's why it says Autism Allyship. Remember that the Botakhaligal activist. So I really struggled with the idea of having an autism foundation when I'm not autistic. So for me, the allyship was a very necessary word.
Talk to us about
name.
it. What is that?
Allyship is, I am talking to you who doesn't necessarily have an autistic person in your life. Us who are here, we are doing the work. We are meeting together. We are learning things. But we also want you who, this is not your life, but to let you know, through this journey, allyship like it does in any other sector, to be like, you don't have to be directly affected to care about this cause, to talk about this, or to create inclusive spaces. You can do it. There's nothing that stops you. There's nothing that stops you. O le ko shopong, o bone mama a tshwere ngwana who is beating around and saying, listen, pay before me. Go through. Nothing stops you from doing that. That is allyship. You know, just understanding those small things. And that's information. Because I realize, Bona, marches are good, wearing t-shirts is great. But it would be nice if we do more substantive moments. Okay, can you understand it? Okay. Do we have some online churches, or can we have a space where mama can just go out, or somebody who volunteers, like, can I help you? Sometimes that's all you want, because sometimes you don't have the words. One of the things we spoke about earlier on was sleep. What would be wrong with saying, okay, Kgomotso, maybe I'm not comfortable with your child coming to my house, but can I come and take care of your child for a bit so that you can sleep? Because sometimes that's all you need. You just need to sleep.
Like what happened for 2 weeks?
Yeah, like Apo Dodge, go Shopong. Hell, Joe, I can wear still. Just because we have these kids doesn't mean we can't have the rest of life. We want to go out. We want to go on dates. I want to do everything, you know?
Yeah.
Just need a bit of support of somebody saying, you know what, I got you. I'll do this for you.
Yeah, like you had a party last night, yeah.
Listen, I gotta live. I gotta keep my cup. People talk about filling your cup. I always say to them, I hear you're filling the cup, but is the cup, how is the integrity of the cup? Yeah. Is the cup intact? So I gotta keep the cup intact.
What keeps you grounded?
I
mean, are there moments where you're overwhelmed?
I am.
Okay.
I'm overwhelmed many more times than you will know.
And how do you cope?
You have known me through the majority of my depression.
Oh, yeah, so.
My depression, and you wouldn't have known it was depression, because remember, our things present differently. So I am, now going over busyness, it's a trauma response as well. You're keeping busy because you can't keep still. Because when I keep still, then I must think. And when I think, I get overwhelmed. And you literally shut down. I think I became a hovering parent. I can say that. I'm a great parent, but I have been through my injuries and through things. I've had hard lessons on Kgomotso, you gotta let go. You gotta, even the boys, I gotta keep pushing them. I mean, this year when I had the knee surgery, let them walk from the bus stop. Let them learn new things, because they are growing people. And as a parent, I still have a duty to raise them as that. But then every 3 weeks, I'm with my psychologist. I'm with my psychologist consistently. I need it. It helps me structure my thoughts. It helps me unpack. People around you, I think many people, and especially parents, mothers, we struggle with I need help. Oh, I'm lonely. I just need somebody to be around. So I started. A lot of my friends, I was lucky. Listen, through this journey, I've lost a lot of people. But you get a few of those people who understand, and we still want to buy. We'll come over to your place then. You know, little things like that. But support groups for me are everything. They got us through COVID, because COVID didn't say, Mistress, I had enough. Doctor, I had enough. COVID, we were so traumatized. And then we were all equal. Because no one the if your child is not an eater, if your child is not potty trained, you are with them in the house. And that's when a lot of support groups, really grew in numbers. And the beautiful thing about a support group, that's why I said to you, and there's many.
Is that how you, those mothers who feel they feel isolated, they feel judged, that's how you feel?
Because in the moment that you're going through things, you think it's just you. Being in a group, other people can say, hey, this happened with me, this is what I did. Like in our group, without breaking too much confidence, like you get to have questions around, my children's father, what do you guys say? Because sometimes the other partner doesn't get that this thing is not going to cure. But the in that way to be like, you know what he wants is also valid. It's not going to change anything. We know it's not going to change anything. But, it's just about praying for your child. It's about bringing people to work for the better. So sometimes you must find compromise. You must find compromise with people, and you must be open up. But I like I said, having a group of other parents is great in the sense that La eletsana or bona, now this is how I broke the news to my family, or somebody ko gae nkutse botlhoko, this is how I'm doing it. Nako nngwe we bring each other, we scold. Like I scold sometimes because then I get tired. You get somebody say, can you yes even a kile kai le ngwana o no letsang le ngwana ko ka ro tseba. What, like some things, this is a life where part of it and part of getting through it is making the necessary adjustment. So rona ha re sa kgona ho ya ko ditlaboreng le eng, it's fine. That is the adjustment you would make. And that's about if you had a child who could play rugby, you would center your life around that rugby so that your child can succeed. Why would it be different if your child has a condition? If your child has a condition, that's what you do. You find the best way to support them. You know, and we learn. There's nobody, I mean, I always say in the support group, because I'm not made to, I'm still a parent. Worse, I'm a parent of 2 people, you know? I'm a parent too, and I'm also learning. So it's not like anybody is the leader of the group. We're all here to share. And it's beautiful because, you know, Nakongwe, we have a webinar. Last time it was us, because I was saying to them, yo, teenager one stress, I'm emotions, and then because of the repetitiveness, like, oh, and then I'm like, oh, I said I don't care about your emotion. Then that's a whole other, you didn't care about my emotion last week, and then we must talk about but one thing I said, yeah, I said complaint, I said emotion. Like, calm
The
down.
support,
Like, calm
take
down.
it easy, take it
Yeah,
easy.
because Tabu
Things will be right, you'll be okay.
Taboo easy. You know, one of the things I love about, especially those of our kids who are non-speaking. I don't care. It's almost like they have a sixth sense or muto disrespect. Like you see it, whether it's nannies, whatever. And it's like, okay, I don't want this person. You know, I have a cousin sometimes who would drive through with my dad. Captain Morgan, and it makes me laugh because I drink wine, Papa drinks wine. But if there's one thing, Captain Morgan, and high dustbin, we toilet thing. And we'd be laughing with my dad. This is not the right thing. I don't know.
Literally.
Like,
But he doesn't do that why how papa.
I'm like, yeah, maybe you must up your standards.
Captain Morgan.
You know? So it's those little things. Like, okay, fine, you won't see Lesedi at age 13, Abala, Barack Obama, and you'll be like, oh, Wanaka Habali. But then sometimes there are also many things that we don't notice. Okay, Harar Lesedi Habali, Kabar Tabahaba, Marmuto Onka tablet. And Osheba, the shows that he wants. How does he do that? You know, so sometimes when we are not seeing things overt, we think they're not happening. I mean, I could do post my surgery. Like, because especially as a parent, we hover. So, but then you see this person, like, given a chance, they have learned some things. My mom was saying, so I go now structured. Like, I can see timetable, like, and those are things you do at home. You keep a routine because the medication is not going to solve everything. You're going to have to make changes in your life. You know, just because somebody doesn't speak in that about doesn't mean you don't talk to them. You talk to them. Hey, brothers, I go Sandra go shopong. Because I learned the hard way. You're like, what happened? You're like, oh my God, I changed the route. I didn't know. When we go through it at some level. And I mean, it's very painful because, you know, not understanding sensory sensitivities. Banabarona okra 1 to 5, maybe how someone understand then you get into a rhythm. Puberty. Then it changes your child, like it changes all kids, you know. But because they cannot communicate or communicate in the way that we're used to, then it exhibits. So regression. Like I said, if school is to fail, that's my anxiety now. If school is to fail, what other routine are we going to put in place that is going to block that space? Because that is something we must do. So you go forward, you step back. And I was saying to you, community, Like we had a webinar talking about teenagers. And when we had that webinar, we realized, no, man, we've got mothers who've got 40-year-olds and 30-year-olds. Let's hear from them as well. Because even that is interesting. I mean, I have a mother is always very interesting to be like, oh, I wanna my child's husband, wife is going through nonsense. Mosadi wa ka ke o ha ba tlo ba le nna mosadi wa tla no go get somebody motabaya and what thabile gam and then you're like but it's like but that's what you said when you don't want let me go do somebody else so I went to
Is
go
that
do-
love making?
yeah, because they're gonna get there, sir. And that's one of the things we don't want to talk about with people with disability. It's so funny because we talk about go curriculum, rona re tlo ba ruta, no. But this body is still this body. You know
And
who?
it has needs to fulfill.
Yeah, so you get people saying, oh, when I can maybe get a hysterectomy, maybe can sterilize. And those things are valid fears.
So you
as
know
a
that the
parent.
boys one day, they will be erect. They will get erection.
Oh, but that started even earlier, sir. That started even earlier. But you gotta and Khwathosa, because predators are everywhere. Predators are everywhere. I mean, hey, I had a nanny the other day. Mpolelela gore ngwanaka o it's king. O shahlile gore like mama was like kopa o ise o a tsamaye Nolas. Like
Hey, Peter Happy, one minute. Say that. Then Arwano Shatlile, meaning Urichichi.
well, ke moditse ke re o bolelang a re ha wa nka re nke re o ready for sex and I just thought to myself how are already I'm going to leave you with my child then what does that mean and she could have just been making conversation but as a parent you're in constant fear like what does it mean because
Will she not be abusing my son?
exactly and these happen anyway this happens at school I mean can you imagine when you're non-speaking and remember the other thing that happens with our kids is the passage of time is not always clear. So how to cry Casey, an autistic child who's abused, whatever, and they have to be in court, and people are like, when did they abuse you? We told it yesterday, the other day, because Hannah that concept. So all those cases end up nowhere. Like molesters and abusers are terrible people. Like they're the scum of the earth, and they're predators. Like that is a fear that you live with. It's a fear I live with. Like, I check up and I like do body checks. I don't like it when you do that. I'm like, I don't care. I am your mother. I have a duty to keep you alive. I need to see everything that's going on. And I'm that person. I walk in, really like, what is going on? Because he's not going to be able to tell me. So I must look for things. So, sometimes people, and it's so sad if you're outside of urban centers and things that dikolo ha diyo. Ntate botsa batho ba complain ka online system that their kids cannot be within 8 kilometers. The majority of us drive 30, 40 kilometers one way to get to the nearest school that is responsive to your child.
You know what, Malcha? What's your vision for mothers or fathers or
Families.
African
Families.
families, especially African families?
Especially African families,
Yeah,
because
what's your
I
vision?
think African families, and I'm a believer in Africans. I think we can do it. It is just to dispel the myths and pass the information around. Why is it that Botha? I did a community radio conversation with a radio station in Sudan, right? And they were talking about different disabilities. And before I spoke, one of the guys was like, nah, we don't have a condition called autism. Because one of the things I love with doing talks or conversations with doctors is they are very technical. So I can just come with stories. But you see through stories that people understand because they were like, no, man, up and down. We all have these people in our communities. And I just wish we can get into a place where we can go back to that thing where a village is conscientized enough to take care of its own, to understand that it is not a stain on you. I mean, it's not a stain. I had a nanny from Zimbabwe who left work after 3 days because her son called me to say, why, like, you didn't explain your basically your child's condition is demonic and now I must go like cleanser mewaka after like people say that to you. They say that to you. they say things to you that will just leave you so shocked sometimes, and you're like, but you're talking about my child, and even our own family. So how do we create those spaces? I'm so scared of getting to a point where something happens to me and then my kids must be put in a home where they are just going to be drugged. We need to, when you look at the East, like China and them, they have the system where old age homes are always next to ECD centers and special, because the older people need the children to rejuvenate them, right? And the kids need the softness of the older people. But the people with disability, being around the older people, they are suddenly not the center of attention anymore. So I see it even at our school. There's a program called an exit program, which is the year or two where the older kids are taught on-site work responsibility. And you're used to everybody saying, you are autism, you are autism, you are autism. And then you put them in an old age home and they are helping older people. And I'm talking about the purpose to be like, I am helping, right? So even after the thing, COVID, where people were being hired to be at the school, so now we fought to say, we want some of our former learners. And some of them are the best class assistants because they understand the children. They can communicate. But then guess what? As the HGB, we must pay because Department of Education is going to be like, they don't have qualifications, so we can't pay them.
Malachai, whilst we have these discussions, do you think that, when it comes to diagnosis, that Black people or Black families access it differently than your white, colored Indian? We talk about, remember, the issues of class, issues of race, issues of, diversity,
Well, when you think about the majority of LSANs that I have seen, which is special needs schools that exist in Leleta Makgoa originally. So I think there has been some work happening, but diagnosis, I could say, I don't know if I can honestly answer you to say that there's a difference in what they do. I think class-wise, it's an easier question because you have access to information, etc., etc. But I think there are also a lot of white people, even in our space, that are struggling. And the biggest struggle I've seen with them is, I think as Black people, we tend to be able to talk about problems collectively. So I found we easily get into support groups, whereas some of the white mothers I found on the journey, they want a one-on-one conversation. They don't want a conversation with other people. And that's who I run into. There are some who get into spaces, but that has been our experience. That has been my experience, right? And I found that there's a shutdown. And in the end, even when you normally think, Jorge, it is us that don't get support. I remember one time being at Woodlands and meeting this couple. Listen, it's like I got gaydar. I can spot autism anyway. You're like, oh, this is what's going on. And I said to them, to the parents, because they were stressing about the child moving around. I was like, no, my kids are also autistic. And they literally cried because they were like, we can't go anywhere. Like even family, like they don't want us. And those are things that happen to people where a grandparent or somebody dies and the rest of the family is like, don't come with your child here. Like, don't come and frustrate us. We are mourning. We cannot be dealing with this inconvenience. Because it's true. Your child's going to be moving up and down. What is going to happen? So many people you find, especially with our higher support or non-speaking kids, you don't go with them there. You maybe will have a conversation, but the setup, it's not going to work. One day, because one day is one day, I'm going to get married. I can't have a wedding and necessarily have my child, like the usual wedding, and see my child being there. So I'm going to have to definitely change how that works so that it is suitable for all of us, right?
Yeah.
Raising non-speaking versus speaking. I wanted one of my boys to speak so badly. Then Lesedi speaks, and sometimes it is a lot. Because also remember, another big part of autism, ki repetitiveness. Yo, kore wakoma, akome. And you sit there and you're like, God, I asked for the child to speak, but this is a lot. Like, I can't. So those are some of the things that happen, but it's always interesting to see how the vocabulary grows. Whereas with our non-speaking, remember, it's either They will be pointing. There are now systems like doing with boards, like that communication, or with computers. But I think one of the hardest things to learn with that is just because your child is not speaking doesn't mean you don't speak to them. So you still need to continuously speak to them, because then you'll get a sense gore motho o go tlile. Like, okay, mo phone ke bua ntate Botha, ke tlo kopa le wena. Tlo kopa le Thabo ko koloing, waiting, ready to go, because this is what is happening. And like I said, you're having autism, but you're having everything else. So I mean, I've learned I no longer leave car keys in jail, because somebody knows. We're going to know this thing goes in here. And this is what we're like. You're going to have problems all the time. Like, I laugh, correct. As parents, sometimes we talk about the lack of support from other people, but we fall into the same biases where you're like, oh, yeah, then you remember,
Well,
like,
yeah.
understand,
Yeah.
and it's funny things like the past few Christmases, my mother and my sister they always spend Christmas at my place. And because our birthdays are in December, like the boy's birthday and my niece, we only do the Christmas tree literally the weekend before Christmas. So let's have one notes about when his grandmother comes, the Christmas tree goes up, right? And last year was so funny. After Mama Tama, like after Batama is saying, he was quiet, moody, no one I feel like a lady who wanna go to something. And he came and he went to bed in the morning, born a kaputile Christmas tree. And I could see the sense, yeah, Coco's gone. This thing is done. Why are we continuing?
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
Mamela, Malcha, thank you so much for making. I think you're sitting there and watching this episode. I think you'd agree with me that it's both empowering, it's enlightening, fascinating, but also, and more importantly for me, hearing this personal, powerful story. It's that of ensuring that as South Africans, there's much more to learn. And once again, thank you so much, Malchai, for making time to come. Thank you so much. Continue to subscribe, continue to like us. Press that thumbs, up and give us, so that it helps us to grow. It helps us to make sure that other, YouTube and other people are able to know that this is valuable information and we need it.
This is Tea with Botha.